Think about the most captivating songs you know. Isn't there something almost magical about the melody, that thread that you can hum or whistle?
Absolutely. Our source material today kicks off with this really powerful idea,
Yeah.
melody as, well, the very soul of music.
Yeah, and it even suggests it's the song of the cosmos. Pretty profound stuff, huh?
It is profound, definitely,
Yeah.
and it really gets to the heart of what we're digging into today. We've got some
Yeah.
fascinating material that really, dissects the elements that make a melody work, how it speaks to us.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to kind of get under the hood of melody. We'll look at the shape and direction it takes as contour.
Right, the ups and downs.
Yeah, and how those individual steps and leaps, the melodic intervals, create different feelings.
Crucial stuff.
Then we'll dive into the frameworks that give melodies structure, scales and modes.
The building blocks.
We'll also touch on the push and pull between melody and harmony.
Always intertwined.
And finally, we'll take a sort of ear-opening journey across different cultures, see how varied melodic styles can be.
It's amazing, the diversity.
Our goal is really that by the end of this, you'll have a much deeper appreciation for what melody is and why it hits us so hard. Okay, so where do we start? How about how a melody actually moves its ups and downs?
That's the perfect starting point. A melody isn't just random notes strung together. It has a deliberate shape, a contour.
Right.
Our sources use some really evocative images here, like comparing it to a soaring bird or a winding river. What does that make you think of?
It makes me think of a journey almost, like there's a path the melody's taking, not just, staying flat.
Exactly, a path. And that path can go different ways. The material outlines 5 basic contours: ascending, descending, arched, V-shaped, and undulating.
Okay, ascending first, moving upwards. What does that usually do? I often feel a sense of building.
That's spot on.
Yeah.
Ascending lines often create rising tension, maybe excitement, or even like aspiration,
Yeah.
reaching for something.
Ah, yeah, like in a film score just before the big reveal.
Precisely. And conversely, descending melodies, moving downwards, they often bring a feeling of relaxation.
Or maybe sadness. Or just finality, like
Sure.
things are settling down.
Yes, exactly. It's like the resolution after that buildup.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Then there's the arched contour up, then back down. The source calls it a journey in resolution. Feels very complete somehow.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It often gives a satisfying sense of completeness, which makes it great for memorable themes, main melodies.
I can see that. And the V shape, down then up. The source says yearning or searching followed by hope or triumph. It's like a mini story.
It really is. The shape itself tells you something about the emotional arc.
Mhm.
Quite amazing, really.
Wow. And finally, undulating. That wave-like motion sounds fluid, graceful.
Fluidity, grace, yes. It can sometimes suggest a sort of cyclical movement, maybe less about a strong drive towards a goal and more about being carried along.
Interesting. So the overall direction is key. But what about the specific steps and jumps between the notes? That's the finer detail of the shape, isn't it?
Exactly. That's where the intervals between the notes and the rhythm come in. Small intervals, like steps minor and major seconds, they tend to create a smooth, connected feel.
Right, like the notes are holding hands almost. Easy to sing.
That's a great way to put it. Very singable, very lyrical. Creates a sense of maybe intimacy or ease. Now, when you get large intervals, those leaps, bigger than a major second.
Ah, yeah, those feel different. More dramatic.
Definitely. They inject energy, drama, excitement. They can feel expansive.
They make a melody memorable too, I think. A big jump really sticks in your head.
It does. Though sometimes they can feel a bit more angular or disjunct. Maybe a bit more challenging to sing accurately, too.
Right. And rhythm plays a part in this shape too.
Absolutely. A regular, predictable rhythm feels stable. But if you have complex rhythms, syncopation.
It feels more dynamic,
Yeah.
unpredictable.
Exactly. It adds another layer of energy or interest. So it's this combination, the big picture contour and the shape from intervals and rhythm. That's what gives a melody its unique character, its voice.
Okay, so we've got the overall movement, the contour, and the finer shapes from intervals and rhythm. Let's zoom in even more on those intervals themselves. The source material really stresses how crucial they are for the feeling. Small steps, like one note right next to another. What's a typical vibe there?
Smoothness, mostly.
Yeah.
Connection, even intimacy sometimes. Feels like the notes just flow naturally, very cohesive, easy on the ear.
Like a whispered secret you said earlier. I like that.
Yeah. And then the large intervals, the leaps. You mentioned drama.
Yeah, energy drama. It's like the melody suddenly jumps. Is it always about excitement, though?
Not always, no.
Mm-hmm.
While leaps can be exciting, they can also convey maybe a sense of yearning or surprise,
Yeah.
or even just, breaking away from the expected path. Context is everything.
Okay, context matters, but then there's the inherent quality of the interval, too, right? Consonance versus dissonance.
Exactly. Another huge layer. Consonant intervals like octaves, fifths, fourths, thirds, sixths. What do they sound like to you?
Pleasing, stable, like everything fits. A sense of rest, maybe? Agreement?
That's perfect. Rest, agreement, stability, harmony, they sound resolved. So melodies heavy on consonants often feel calm, peaceful, maybe joyful, no friction.
Like a comfy chair for your ears?
Huh. Yeah, something like that. Now, dissonance. That's the other side. Those seconds, tritones, sevenths.
Tension, definitely tension. Unease, maybe. Like something isn't quite settled.
Precisely. Tense, unstable. They often create this desire for resolution. They pull towards a consonant sound.
Ah, so they create drama, urgency, longing.
All of the above, potentially. Think about film scores again. That sudden dissonant chord.
Instant suspense.
Yeah.
Right.
It grabs you.
So composers use this all the time, build tension with dissonance.
And then resolve it with consonants for that feeling of release.
Yeah.
Ah, that's like manipulating our feelings with sound. It absolutely is. There's strategic use of intervals, their size, their quality. It's how musicians sculpt the emotional journey of a melody. It's how they guide the listener, like a conversation with our emotions, as you said.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, so melodies have shape, contour, intervals, giving emotional texture. But they don't just wander randomly, do they? They usually work within some kind of structure.
Generally, yes. That's where scales and modes come in. Our source highlights these as the framework.
Like a painter's palette of available notes.
Exactly. A defined set of notes with specific relationships between them provides structure, direction.
Okay, scales. We mostly know major and minor. Major sounds bright, happy. Minor sounds darker, melancholic. That seems pretty standard.
It's the common currency for sure, in Western music at least.
Yeah.
But there are others mentioned, like pentatonic scales or blues scales.
Right. What different flavors do they bring? Pentatonic, that's 5 notes. That's kind of open, folky.
Very much so. You hear it everywhere in folk music, globally actually.
Yeah.
Creates a very sort of stable, open sound. And the blues scale.
Ugh. Those blue notes, those slightly flat notes give it that soulful, yearning quality, right? Central to blues and jazz.
Couldn't have said it better. Each scale has its own distinct character, its own mood.
Okay, and then modes. Now, these can feel a bit trickier sometimes. The source says they come from the diatonic scale, but each has a unique pattern and character. So is it like using the same notes as a major scale, but starting on a different note and treating that as the home base?
That's exactly it. You shift the starting point, the tonal center, within that same set of notes, and suddenly the relationships between the notes change. The whole feel changes.
Ah, okay, so it creates different colors.
Precisely. Different melodic colors, different emotional feels. Like the Lydian mode often sounds bright, maybe even a bit dreamy or ethereal because it has a raised fourth note compared to major.
Okay.
Whereas the Dorian mode, it's minorish, but has a raised sixth, which can sound kind of melancholic, but also maybe a bit hopeful or jazzy sometimes.
Wow. So modes really open up a much wider range of moods than just major or minor.
Absolutely. A much broader palette for creating distinct atmospheres, even with the same basic notes.
So the choice of scale or mode is fundamental. It shapes the whole feeling. And presumably, it influences the harmony that works with it too.
Definitely. The notes in the scale or mode naturally suggest certain chords that will sound right with the melody. It creates coherence between the horizontal melody and the vertical harmony.
It's all so connected. Okay, shifting gears just a little. The relationship between melody and harmony. The source says it's not just melody floating on top of chords. They really interact.
They really do. It's a dynamic relationship. For instance, a strong melody can actually imply its own harmony.
Oh, yeah. How does that work?
Well, our ears are so used to hearing melodies with chords that when we hear a clear melody, especially one outlining chord tones, our brain almost fills in the harmony that should be there. Have you ever done that? Heard a tune and just knew the chords?
Totally. It's almost automatic sometimes. And the other way around is obvious too, right? Adding chords to a melody changes its mood.
Absolutely. Harmonize the same simple tune with major chords, it sounds happy. Use minor chords, it sounds sad or reflective. The harmony provides the emotional context.
Even if the melody notes themselves are pretty neutral.
Exactly. But it goes even further. Sometimes the melody is almost a product of the harmony. Think about jazz improvisation.
Right, where the soloist is basically creating a melody on the fly based on the chord changes the band is playing.
Precisely. The melody becomes an exploration of that harmonic structure. It's very interactive.
So it's real back and forth. They can work together smoothly or maybe create interesting tensions against each other.
Exactly that. It's a dynamic, often reciprocal relationship. They can reinforce each other or create contrast, adding layers of depth.
Like a continuous conversation, as we said. Okay, now for something really fascinating, the global perspective. Our source talks about how melody varies wildly across cultures.
It's incredible, isn't it? Melody isn't just one thing. It's expressed in so many different ways, reflecting history, values, aesthetics.
So let's start with Western music, probably most familiar, based on major, minor, strong harmony focus.
Right, and often quite structured, goal-oriented melodies.
Hmm.
Clarity and balance are often prized.
Okay, now contrast that with, say, Eastern traditions, like Indian or Arabic music.
Big difference. Often based on modes, ragas, or aqams, which are much more than just scales. They involve specific melodic patterns, ornaments, even moods associated with times of day.
Wow.
And you get microtonal inflections, those notes between the notes on a Western piano. Highly ornamented, often improvisational. The focus is really on the nuance of the melodic line itself.
Sounds much more intricate, maybe more fluid than the Western focus on harmonic progression.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
Now think about African music. What comes to mind?
Rhythm, definitely rhythmic complexity, syncopation, call and response.
Yes, all key elements.
Hmm.
Melodies are often deeply tied to rhythm and dance. They can be more repetitive, cyclical. The emphasis is often on rhythmic drive, energy, and community participation.
You can really feel that communal energy. And finally, indigenous music. The source calls it incredibly diverse.
Hugely diverse.
Yeah.
It reflects specific environments, spiritual beliefs, languages. You might find unique scales, intervals you don't hear elsewhere, distinctive vocal techniques.
Often a deep connection to nature, perhaps.
Very often, yes.
Yeah.
Highly expressive, carrying deep cultural meaning. The sheer range across all indigenous cultures is just staggering.
It really shows that melody, while fundamental, is shaped so much by culture. It's not one size fits all.
Not at all. The source rightly concludes that this diversity shows incredible human creativity. Melody is this powerful tool for expressing, well, everything: emotions, stories, identity.
It's a powerful reminder that music is so deeply human, so tied to where and how people live.
Exactly. And melody is one of its most versatile, most expressive parts.
Well, this has been truly eye-opening, or maybe ear-opening, a real deep dive into melody.
Hopefully. We've covered a lot: contour, intervals, scales, modes, harmony, cultural styles.
Yeah, hopefully you listening have a richer sense now of what's going on in that singing line.
Absolutely. And the next time you're listening to music, really listen to the melody. Notice its shape, its ups and downs, the feel of the intervals, the underlying scale or mode.
Yeah.
How does it make you feel?
Great advice. And just to wrap up, let's throw out a final thought inspired by that warm trial idea mentioned in the source material. Could things beyond music have a kind of melody?
What do you mean?
Well, could the movements of planets, maybe,
Yeah.
or fundamental forces in the universe, could they have their own melody, even if it's not sound as we know it?
I see. Like patterns of movement and interaction on a cosmic scale, the orbits tracing vast contours, subatomic interactions having their own consonance and dissonance.
Exactly. It makes you wonder if the principles we find beautiful in music structure, tension, release, contour, might reflect deeper patterns in the universe itself.
That's a really fascinating, provocative thought, that maybe the structures we create or perceive in melody aren't just human inventions, but reflections of something more fundamental.
Something to ponder anyway. So, next time you hear a great tune, remember all the layers we talked about: the shape, the steps, the leaps, the framework. Understanding melody really can deepen your appreciation, not just for music, but maybe for the hidden patterns all around us.